All right. Well, that's a good time for a fade out. I would like to welcome Jason LeVasseur.
I am here, and I am
Hey,
glad to be here.
good to be here. And I think you can't see me, can you?
Not yet, but I can hear you, and that's
Uh,
good. That's
well,
good.
I don't think I told you, but we're gonna do this whole thing just like this.
That'd be great. Yeah, I will look at me and talk to you, which is awesome.
Okay,
You
sounds
don't need a
good.
camera. You don't need a camera. I know how good looking you are. That's
Oh,
the
thank you.
like I know, like, and you know what? It helps me. Like when you're next to me, I don't look as good. So just
Whatever.
keep the camera off.
Well, it's funny actually. I actually did an interview. Okay, we'll do the FaceTime camera. Here I am.
Hey,
Hey. Um,
hey.
welcome, Jason LeVasseur. Jason, I've known Jason for many years now, but we got to know each other better since I moved to Nashville 4.5 or so years ago. But I just want to tell a little story about Jason that he's heard me tell before. Um, and so when I was an impressionable young new drummer, Jason was already around town playing in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where we both were living at the time. I was in high school, I think, or maybe right before high school. And I remember going to some all ages club that Jason was playing at, and this guy, this older cool guy, wanted to borrow my bicycle helmet for some reason, and I guess it was to jump off the stage or something like that. I don't know what it was because I didn't get to stick around for that part, but then Jason brought that helmet back, I don't know, a day or two later. He brought it to my house, and I had a little separate building where I had the drums and I was playing. I was probably nervously playing because, this guy, this rock star guy, was coming to bring the helmet back. And so anyway, so you've been an impressionable person, Jason, and since I moved to Nashville, we started getting together some, and
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure, Jason. For basically your whole adult career has traveled constantly, touring colleges, universities, and I'm sure doing other types of gigs as well. But started out doing mostly performing, playing your
Yeah.
songs, I believe,
Yeah.
and then that turned into also some leadership development, team building,
Yeah.
and a project of his called the Rockstar Project. And so I was thinking we could just talk about, what it was like beforehand, before COVID, all the
Yeah.
traveling and what you're doing now, how, what, because you've really, you've just you hit the ground running, and just also community building.
Right.
Jason's always been a great at bringing people together. So anyway, I want to talk about all those things, but regarding the no picture, so I got to interview one of my favorite drummers, Herlin Riley,
Oh yeah.
and he was calling in from his phone. He was in the studio. He was doing a live stream
Uh-huh.
with Delfeo Marsalis. He used to play with Wynton Marsalis for many
Yeah.
years, but anyway, he so we ended up having to call in, and so at first it was just like me on the screen with him on audio, and so then I put myself in the corner and a picture of him, and that worked a little bit better, but a
Cool.
little
Yeah.
awkward.
The being able to adapt on the fly is really important for anything related to what we're doing now virtually, but also as a musician, like being able to play through a broken string, or your bass drum pedal flying off, or your stick breaking, or a cymbal falling over, or somebody from the audience coming up and dancing on stage and tripping into the drums, right? That and then we just have to keep going. Like we just these are the things and it's not so much about musicianship. It's a lot about your attitude, right? It's so much about your attitude, about how you're gonna be in that situation. And so I guess a reflection on your generosity as a teenager, that you gave somebody your helmet. So I don't remember who it was that dove off stage, whether it was me or not. I don't actually have a memory. You're nodding. Do you know?
No, I don't know because I didn't get to stay for that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I did yeah, so anyway, then I'm glad you got your helmet back. Like I want to be known for, in my life I've always as a summer camp camper, because there's another side of me that's not music, that's like summer camp, and just as from the time I was a little kid, you just always want to do the right thing, right? And so it's
Mhm.
always just been a part of my my philosophy on how I work with people, and how I guess you were mentioning the community building. We can chat about that in a little bit, but that it's always been there. Is I'm always I'm and and I think we should talk about this at some point about how our music and the things that we create are not for us.
Mm.
Like I think there's some like real transition that happened. The ego that we had as teenagers, because most of the folks I know that were playing were wanted to get on stage to be seen,
Mm.
right? To be seen or to get applause. We love the music that was there because we liked the bands that we grew up listening to, and then we emulated those musicians. But really, like, there's this stage when you're like, I want the audience to just be focused on me, and then there's a point where you realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm here for the audience, right? It's being able to perceive everything differently. Like, you are there to create this event for them. They didn't show up for you, right? You have a responsibility to really just be awesome when somebody falls in your drum set and keep it going, and make the event worth going to, right?
Yeah.
So that's my opening thought for the day.
Okay. Hey, Greg Baird says, "Hi there, happy Friday."
Greg Baird, what's happening? So you can see the comments. I can't see the comments unless I open up another screen, which I should do. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, feel free to, and I can always read them out too.
Right.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. So I'd love to start with just kind of what life was like, working life before COVID for you. How that had started to change for you as well, and then also, am I loud enough or too loud?
Yeah. You're perfect.
Okay.
You're so eloquent.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But how have things, so what was it like? What kind of schedule were you keeping?
What year do you want to go to? Because I will say, like, pre-COVID was like senior year of college in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I was in 6 different bands, right? So I was not only student teaching high school English juniors and seniors, waking up like at the crack of dawn to go student teach and in my tie. But every night I was doing like 4 or 5 nights a week with different bands. I was a singer in a band. I was a drummer in a band. I was playing 3 chords on the guitar because I'd only been playing for a couple of years at that point, and just so in that point that was chaos. Then then for like 15 years with Jerry Chapman, also from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the band Life in General. I mean, there were multiple years where we did 250 shows a year, where we were playing and touring and just crazy road warriors. So go to 2019, I had created a more realistic, healthy schedule as a solo performer and as a facilitator of events. So one of the things that happened in 2009, and I'll connect the dots between summer camp and rock and roll, is that I was playing a lot of music shows at colleges, and an advisor from the Northeast, from Connecticut, I was opening for LMFAO. Like I was doing a solo opening gig for an amazing band that just put on this awesome show. It was like their songs Party Anthem and Shot Shot Shot. Anyway, so the crowd is crazy, but I'm just the solo guy. But the advisor walked in on me speaking to all the students who coordinated the event. And I was, I believe, giving them a pep talk about all the hard work they'd done. I was really complimenting on all the effort they'd put in. And I think that it was just me, like, in a way, talking to my younger counselors.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that mode of like, all right, we're going on a camping trip. What do we need to do? What do we need to pack? And who's got this job? And what can we do here? And the advisor, who saw the way that I was speaking to the students, then visited me at camp during one of our staff trainings pre-camp, and made the connection for me. Says, you have got to do some of this stuff with my students more often, not just from the stage, but come and do a workshop on how to work with your team, how to overcome obstacles of working with a team. And that was 2009. I did my first keynote as a leadership speaker, right? And I didn't even consider myself a speaker yet.
You said 2009?
2009, yeah.
Yeah.
Was my first one. So this is year 11 of me being a professional speaker, right? But it was something I was doing anyway as a camp counselor, but I didn't realize that it matched up, because it with my touring, I was purely rock and roll. I was purely entertainment. Never thought of myself as a teacher in those settings, but then realized somebody else who got to know me well realized that was where I was supposed to be. And I agree with my friend Sarah from Massachusetts. She now lives in Massachusetts. That like now I feel like I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I always felt good doing what I was doing, but now I really feel like, because I'm teaching and performing.
That's awesome. And it sounds like two of your worlds kind of came together. Not kind of, they came together.
Yeah, and they were always there, right? So even in high school, playing in bands, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. Like I knew I wanted to be a high school teacher. I just did. That some people know that, but I wanted to be a high school teacher so that I could go to summer camp, right? So that I could but I was always playing music every day after school with friends. Like I was hanging out with musicians, and then so the two worlds really did, like there was the summer camp life of Jason, and then there was the rock and roll band life of Jason. And then yes, they did definitely they clashed in a beautiful like mixing bowl in 2009, and since then it is just I've just gotten better and better at adding the ingredients and making the beautiful cakes. I'm making cake.
You're making cakes, yeah.
Cakes.
Just don't forget the flour, unless you're making a flourless cake.
No, I've had some good ones. I mean, that's the thing. Okay, so on that, look, I'm gonna just riff on these ideas.
Yeah.
Sometimes you show up and there's no flour, right? Sometimes you show up and the system is bucking, the microphone doesn't work. Like, what are you gonna do in that moment, right? Are you gonna be a prima donna and walk away, or are you gonna go kick butt with the ingredients that you've been given, right? And my vote is for all of you who may be listening to this is go kick butt without flour, right? Without, hey, what you can do a lot of other stuff with a bowl of sugar and an egg.
Yeah.
That sounds weird.
No, I'm sure there's like some custard or something you can make.
You can totally make custard. Yeah.
I don't think people realize, but we're actually going to get into a cooking show.
Right. I'm just seconds away from a spatula. You just say the word. I will go get
Bring it. Well, I've been doing found object stuff, and we use spatulas.
That's great.
So you said in 2019 you started like, how can I make this more? I'm going to use this word, sustainable, healthy.
Yeah.
So what was it like before, and then what changed? Like, how did you change it?
Before, I mean, I was still so 2019 pre-COVID. It was sustainable, but it was in the sense that I'm talking on a personal health level,
mm-hmm.
right? So what I was discovering is that I was I was sleeping in one bed for 2 months in the summer, going to work at summer camp, work with the staff, work with the campers, living in Maine. So, and that's something that last summer of 2019 was my 30th summer.
Wow.
In Maine, and completely going off the road. But and then August and September was like 30 events, like, and then inevitably, and then it was conference season with the National Association of Campus Activities and the Association for the Promotion of Campus Activities. And it was conference season, so every weekend I'd be away. And just for everyone listening, is that I'm married and I have children and I have a life with other people who like me around, and I wasn't around. And I was seeing the people that I liked at the conferences. I was seeing the people that I liked away from my family, but I feel like it was, rather than having balance every day, mine was very compartmentalized in weeks and months of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I would be away from my family, then I'd be with my family, because when I was off the road, I didn't go to work, right? I would work when they were in school and work online and things like that, or work on songs. But I was always sort of looking for, and every fall, the reason I'm saying this is that every fall after this like really intense tour, I was like, maybe I should do something else. I'm always worn out at this time of year. Like I'm always like, I don't know if this is the right fit for me, like, and I'm like, after 25 years, is this the right fit for me? And I think that's an okay thing to do, is to always question, so what you're doing and why you like it, and
yeah,
and who you are, and and then so that was 2019. Still on the road a lot, and then I had a really amazing schedule for the spring of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And
what made it amazing?
And the fall, just big events, fewer events,
mm-hmm.
Greater impact.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I had fewer events with larger audiences, which meant that I was going to have a greater impact as a speaker. And I think in the last couple of years, I even stopped thinking of myself as a self-promoting musician.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So for 20 years, I would say, buy my CD, go to the back room, grab a t-shirt, download my music online. And that's not even part of my language anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and I think I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson. So I love him, and he's a scientist and a teacher. I think he's still the head of the the Hayden Planetarium. I think.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the right plan. And he's a brilliant guy, but what he said in one of the things that I watched of his was, I don't care if you remember me I don't care if you remember me at the end of this. Like, I want you to remember what I taught you. Right. And I was like, that's really kind of the way I feel at this stage of my, I guess call it career or my life or my evolution or, in my own development. Like, it's not important to me that the students that I work with go like me on Facebook, right? I want the messages that they hear and the lessons that they learn to be the things they remember.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's through a story I told, awesome. But I don't care if they can spell my last name. I don't. Whereas to me, that was like, I think it was so important to me at one point. Like, man, you got to spell my name right, or you won't be able to find me on Spotify. Like,
yeah.
And anyway, so I think that's another evolution of my own journey. And I don't know, in 5 years, maybe I'll be back to like, dude, you got to download my songs because, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you were able to, is it your schedule that was coming up in 2020, and maybe it was, you had bigger impact, but less, maybe fewer gigs?
Fewer engagements, greater impact, and complete transparency, greater impact, larger audiences means that it was a different kind of income.
Definitely.
For those events. So I was able to do fewer and be more selective. And then March came around, and I think I was a fortunate person that I had events booked in Seattle and in Portland, Oregon in March.
Mm-hmm.
And they were canceled.
Yeah.
And they were canceled early, right? And so I was able to reach out to all the folks that I was going to be visiting and say, like, hey, this thing is happening. This thing is coming. And there were a lot of schools in the middle of the country and even on the East Coast. They were like, it's not really happening. And I was already transitioning and thinking about this as my stage, right? So
before COVID.
No, because my events had just been canceled.
Oh, you mean as soon as that happened, you were?
As soon as it happened, now, and I did my first Zoom in March of this calendar year, but since then I've facilitated more than 200 events, right? By that is like I've hosted an open mic or a variety show or done workshops, and with some campuses I've done close to 20 different events with one school. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, so for people who maybe are, just starting to do some things online, like what were some of the first steps you took to start doing it online?
The first steps was just really deciding that it was possible. It was so much about attitude, right? So much of it is whether or not you think you can do it. And if you think you can do it, you're going to do it. I mean, the reality of it is, like, so full disclosure, like, when I first started, I got the microphone, I had headphones, I made sure everything was great. But then since then, I've actually turned this microphone off. This is now just a prop, right? This is not.
I remember you saying that, yeah. But sorry, our setup's a little bit similar, but I'm actually using this microphone because
you sound better than I do, right?
Not necessarily, but also I got a lav mic, but I'm having issues with it, so I'm not using the lav mic.
But one of the things that I was really trying to encourage people to do is to realize that you don't need anything but. Okay, so we're super lucky that we have computers. We're so lucky that we have the ability to have this technology. But and I'm lucky that my computer has a microphone. I'm lucky that my computer has a camera, right? But what I've always been encouraging everyone to do is to realize that this is it. I'm using the basic technology that comes with the computer to present, to perform. So
you're using the built-in mic as well?
Built-in mic, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes to show that the content or what you are actually putting out is more important. That's the thing for me when this first started happening. It was like, okay, I need to get this, I need to try this, and I have, I've learned a lot in that process and I've enjoyed that process, but like I've kind of come full circle, like what's the simplest thing I can do that'll work easiest and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think philosophically and musically I've always sort of been that way because I did live in an unplugged world in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There is no electricity in the cabins at camp.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So as a musician, I would write songs, and as a drummer, I would play drums, but I would never think about what I could plug in, right? So as a drummer, I would maybe play softer. As a guitar player, I would not worry about pedals. I would not think of looping. And so even in my leadership workshops now, I'm a very low tech guy. I'm a very low tech guy, and that's why I'm focusing on the content. I'm focusing on the songwriting instead of trying to build something around something that relies on a PowerPoint presentation, or it relies on Kahoot to be working, or it relies on chat to be working. Like, what can I do with the least amount of technology, with the least amount of bells and whistles to do something that has an impact.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I noticed, so we did a roundtable discussion, and actually you are partly responsible for Clif chats as well, because this has become a weekly thing. And I think I did a few interviews, but I was trying to plan this panel, and you encouraged me. I was going to push it out a month or two, and you're like, just do it now. And
Yeah, right.
and so anyway, but it was really that was really valuable, actually, because we can all get. It's easy for many of us to get stuck into the mentality of, okay, I'm going to plan this out, and not act. And so anyway, so you've really that really pushed me forward for just to do this, and improvise and try to improve it as you go.
Thank you. I'm so glad you did, because what's the worst thing that happens?
Yeah, and it actually has led to some other things. But so it's an interesting thing. So I posed a question early on, like in March, to people on Facebook, like what can I do to make it look better? And people, first thing, lights are the most important thing. Your lighting, and so we did that thing. So I like invested in for me, it wasn't a cheap light. It's not an expensive light as far as videographers, but I got a light and still wasn't totally happy with it. And we did that conversation. Taylor was also a part of it, and
there's two other fantastic musicians.
Yeah, it was Taylor. I'm blanking right now.
I've never met before, but that we did have one conversation. I don't remember names.
Well, anyway, but I noticed the look of you're using your computer camera, but it looked really good, and I was just like, why does that look so much better? And then you mentioned it during that you had a paper backdrop, which I have now too. I got this thing that rolls down. I can put.
That's great, yeah.
But it makes such a big difference. And so anyway, so I think you tapped in. I don't know if you just instinctively knew, like, I need something that looks this way, or if you asked people, or how you figured that out. But it.
I think no. The reason that I went with paper, and there's paper here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that one of my neighbors is a photographer, and he had rolls of paper in his garage that he wasn't using.
Oh, okay.
And otherwise, it would be my wall, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's truthfully, I think that was a stumble. That was I was like, I'm going to call Alan, and see if what he recommends, because when you grow your network, okay, when you grow your network and you're willing to meet your neighbors, and you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, even for the introverts on the call and the shy people, like, the more people the more ideas you're going to get put into your life. And when you allow for those ideas to come in, and you let yourself talk to your neighbors, or your people who live in your building, you're going to find somebody who has a roll of paper in their house like that. You just don't know. And that's why even now with this platform, I'm encouraging everyone here to take every opportunity to go to virtual events. Go to, and if you can't figure out where to go, then invite your friends, invite people to hang out, and ask them to invite friends to hang out. It doesn't have to be a thing. You don't have to have a thing. Getting together is enough of an event, right? And so I could talk about that for days, right?
Well, I definitely want to talk about community building, because that's another thing that's always impressed me about you is you are someone who always includes people. That's the way that I perceive it. I mean, you've included me many times in different things that you were doing, and so you've always been very inclusive, but also just like really community builder. And so I'm just curious, like, how more, like, maybe you could talk more about what that was like before COVID, and what that's like now, and starting the virtual community that you started, and what that's like.
I haven't compared them in that way, but that's a really good question. And I was trying to think as you were saying that why I am that way, right? And then I was thinking about summer camp again,
Uh-huh.
right? Because once I was a second year camper, like imagine this, I'm 10 years old, I'm a second year camper, and I was empathetic to the new kids, right? The ones who were homesick, because I was a homesick first year camper,
Okay.
right? And I think early on I realized that we all just want to make friends. We all want to be included. We want to make friends, and there's a curve of when we're brand new and we don't know what's going on, right? So if I have somebody move to my street here in Nashville, I'm like, they are just like a new camper.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't move to the street to not make friends. They didn't move to the street to be isolated. They didn't move to Nashville to not grow their own network, right? So I think I started recognizing that, and even like as a young counselor in my teens, like I kept on encouraging other campers to include the newest kids, right? So there's this idea of that nobody doesn't want to be with you. Nobody doesn't want to be part of it, right? In a humanistic sense of it, right? You could be doing something. You could be playing basketball, and you invite someone to play basketball, and they don't like basketball, right? But they appreciate the invite, right?
Sure.
And that's and I for like and I haven't used that example before, but like everybody wants to be invited,
Definitely.
right? And I think that okay. So here's another part of that is getting over the fear of them saying no to your invitation,
Mm-hmm.
right? As a self-promoting artist, more people have seen posters for my events and not shown up to my events, right? I have emailed more people who have not opened the email. I have invited friends who have told me they were going to come and didn't show up,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got to get over that. You got to get over that. You got to realize that, like, it meant something to them just to send them an email. It meant something that they got invited. It's cool that they know that there's a possibility. It could be they just forgot about the event, which is totally normal human behavior too. But so there's two parts to that. It's like recognizing that everyone wants to be included and that you have the power to include them.
Yeah, and not taking it personally if they don't.
If they don't like basketball, like
Yeah.
right. And why would I use basketball? I don't play basketball. Like I have no game. I have no game. Like anybody can beat me in basketball, but I was just using that sort of because I was visualizing the field at my summer camp where I've been since I was a little kid, and that's where all the parents drop off their kids, and that's where all the buses pull up. Like it's the field, and next to the field is the basketball court.
Okay.
Right, so some kids just gravitate towards the courts, and that's the way that they connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids gravitate towards the soccer, and that's where they kick the ball around. And some kids are reading a book, and this is where they're most comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to recognize that that's where they're comfortable. So your approach to them isn't like, "Hey, dude, you want to play ball?" Right?
Yeah.
It's more like, "What are you reading?
Yeah.
Tell me about your book." Right?
Have you ever read Harry Potter?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
It's recognizing that also that everyone doesn't like what you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sharing what you like with the world and if people like what you like, then maybe they'll join in. But giving them the option, giving the invitation.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And I think so. As far as inclusivity and then in community, what so I noticed right when people started staying home with COVID, you immediately started this virtual community, and it just grew and grew and grew. Would you talk about that community?
Yeah. So let's say that it was like because I started on March 15th, and that week I'd already been having events canceled. I was like, well, I need to learn some things about virtual presentations.
Were you freaking out at that point?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. Freaking out maybe not be the right word. More like a sense of overwhelm. So my freakouts are like more like sit on the couch and stare at the wall.
Like you internalize those maybe?
I think maybe I did, and definitely I was worried, but more definitely from an income standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And I went online looking for help. I went into Facebook looking for the virtual event ideas community. I thought it would have had to have existed. because there were other people who had been doing it for a couple of years. What I'm talking about is teaching online, and there were spaces for online teachers, but there wasn't a space, there wasn't a group yet for people who were hosting events, or performers who wanted to perform, or speakers who needed to share ideas. So really, genuinely, the creation of the group was, I could say selfishly, I needed answers. I wanted other people to help me, and then I will definitely take credit for starting the group, but I didn't make the group what it is, right? The group has been made by the community of folks helping each other, right? So the group is so cool because anything was asked, and people were so willing to share and give answers and support each other, and share their what one would have called on their own. I don't use the word failure for an event. It's not something I like to call things that don't go the way you had planned. But it's a place for everyone to just like share it and say like, okay, this didn't go as planned. What would you have done? Or what are you doing on your campus? Or what are you doing with your venue? Or what are you doing as a music teacher, or a comedian, or a novelty performer, or a hypnotist? Like, what's going on? What can we do? How can we bring people together so that we look at this as a community of people helping each other through? And at the time was like summer, right? A summer, because even then schools were not canceling their August dates with me. They were still like, well, we'll still do orientation. And at that point, by June 1st, by April 1st. So even before March ended, I was connecting with all those schools and saying, we need to think of an alternative for our event.
So you turned a lot of those what would be in-person events into online events.
Correct. Yes, I did, and I still had flights booked, and I still had plans. I mean, it's sort of in the back of my mind. I was like, this isn't really going to happen.
Yeah.
But I wanted the conversation to begin with those partners, those school partners, for them to think about the possibility that all is not lost.
Yeah.
Right? Because some of the folks were still just sort of wrapping up their spring semester and hadn't really thought about August yet, because that's something you can think about once August starts. And then there were some folks who didn't. Their attitude was, all is lost. All is lost. This isn't going to work. This is not the way we've done it in the past. We can't change it because we've done it this way forever, and their forever was 2 years, right? So it's interesting to think of how habits form and how traditions form, and I'll go back to summer camp. Like, I work at a camp that's been around for 100 years. And if you've been there for 5 years or 10 years or 30 years like me, some things you have this broad perspective that they've been going on forever. But if you're a 15-year-old and you've been there 3 years, and I know the thing that you're talking about's only been going on for 3 years, for that person, that is the lifetime of their experience at camp, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same with a campus, same with a college. If you are an advisor and you've done this event in a certain way, and then somebody presents an alternative to it, the mindset, the shift in the possibilities has to happen in that person. So I was really encouraging people to just frame it differently, like, and take a step back and look at it as like, no, we can't put candy canes on the tables for the Christmas event. No, we can't. But what were the goals? Like, what are the goals of all these gatherings of people, right? So take a step back. What is your goal? Is your goal bingo? Is your goal getting people together to make a genuine connection?
Yeah.
Right? And if you look back and you go like, oh no, our goal was actually to get people together to make a genuine connection, then bingo, or whatever the event is secondary to your goal of getting people together. And that was really what I've been you'd say I've been preaching it now, is like, stop worrying about the thing and realize that there's a lot of people out there that just want to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Right. And that needs to be included in every event that you put on virtually, is that there needs to be an opportunity for people to connect with each other.
Definitely. Yeah. And I want to talk more about that. But it's just got me thinking about, so not, like you said, some people are like, all is lost, but really, for anyone who is thinking that, there are a lot of positive things that have come about because of this time right now that we're living in. Whereas there are connections being made that maybe wouldn't have been made.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's also, there's opportunities to connect with people we maybe wouldn't have been able to connect with before, or may have been more challenging too. So anyway, so I just want to just bring that up, and I want to hear more about how what are some things you've done to make it an experience that has been a experience that people remember and they connect with people and feel really good about.
Well, it on this platform, on Zoom, it's the use of breakout rooms, it's the use of chat, it's the use of asking a question and giving folks a chance to think about the answer to the question and then write it in the chat, or to go to a breakout room and chat with each other, to have actual conversations, but a much smaller group. So it's groups of like 3 or 4 or 5, not 60 people or 25 or 800. I did one event with 800, and I was able to do breakout rooms of 4 or 5, even in the group of 800, because
Did you have someone helping you with the technical side of that? I hope the 800 people. What? Oh man. Well. So
this is the thing. I've been on a lot of panels with other speakers, and everyone's like, yes, you need to have an assistant do this and a production manager do this, and I still I'm like, I've never had one. And so for that event that I had 800 people at, I had 2 Zoom rooms open, I had 2 laptops. And it was an orientation event with a college, and it was a 2-hour event, right? And I was just managing the green team and the red team and the yellow team and the orange team. But there were 400 students in each Zoom meeting. I was telling stories. They were writing down. They would go into breakout rooms. They would share with each other. They would come out. I would play a song. We'd have a laugh. As a community, we were building community.
Yeah.
Right? But they needed the chance not to hear me. They needed a chance for me to set them up to meet each other.
Definitely.
Right?
So, well, I have some questions about the specifics of that. What kind of questions would you ask? How would you get them to break out? Because one thing I've noticed, when you have a larger group of people, it's like if you're at a party with 20 people, you're not going to all sit in a circle the whole time, and one person's going to talk and then another person, and then it's going to bounce around. And so there's that aspect where the way you use breakout rooms really makes a lot of sense, but knowing the timing of when and how. So I'm just curious about using questions and when you do the breakout rooms, how you would do the breakout rooms, how do you decide how many people, where they go?
Different kinds of events. Some of them are networking events, and then some of them are like teaching events, like leadership workshops.
Mm-hmm.
But I always do one early on. I start with the oldest. Like I think the question. I'm going to get to the breakout part in a sec. Somebody posted on one of the speaker pages that I'm a part of, like, what are you guys using to keep people engaged on your calls? And like the best thing possible that you can use to get people engaged is tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not a wheel of wonder or a thing. It's not flashy. We have been telling stories since we were cavemen. Like, that's what we're intrigued by. We're intrigued by the tale of, what happened to me and to you. That's what connects us, is the story. And then, so that I will say is the most engaging tool for a virtual engagement or an in-person engagement is a story. And everybody has at least a story, one story, right? Mm-hmm. Something funny happened to you at some point in your life, right? And it doesn't have to be funny, right? It doesn't have to be funny. It totally can go along with your personality. But the breakout rooms, so this is great for anybody who's a facilitator and anybody who wants to use breakout rooms, is that setting the attendees up for success in a breakout room is that you pose a question and you give them time to process the question, right? And what I always do is, in the beginning of my events, I get everyone to grab a pen and a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna grab a pen and a piece of paper, and that's how I start the workshops after I've been introduced or after they've seen heard a story. I ask everyone to grab a pen and a piece of paper. Then I pose a question, and then I say, now write down. I'm gonna give you a minute to write down the answer to these 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
In my first breakout room, they're going to share their answers to those questions. So if you're somebody who is super shy it's helpful because you're going into that room already knowing what you're going to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it really sets everybody going into the breakout room. And I even say this, you're going into a breakout room, but you don't have to come up with anything to say. And I'm going to tell you what order you're going to go in. Shortest hair goes first. You're going to be in there for 4 minutes. You're going to tell them your name, where you are in the world today, and then the answer to the 3 questions I just asked you.
Yeah.
And then they go in for a breakout room, and it's 3 or 4 people, and everybody comes out of the breakout rooms with their video on, right? Because inevitably, it's a safer space to turn on the video.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a giant auditorium. It's kind of backstage.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not, and it's allowing for those folks to make a connection, show up, say something, share something, speak into a microphone, and then come back out into the larger group again and still be alive. Right. And I point that out. I was like, everyone's still here and everyone's still breathing. Right.
Yep.
And so that's a celebration of that connection they made. And that's really a part of my conversation the whole time is like practicing showing up, living through that first encounter.
And I'm guessing you haven't lost anyone yet.
Not that I know of. I've definitely had. I mean, of the thousands and thousands at this point who've been in Zooms with me, I've had people who leave.
Oh, of course. Yeah, everyone does.
Because, I mean, this is the part about showing up as your authentic self. When you're truly authentically you, not everyone likes what you're throwing at them, right? And you know, maybe they came into the Zoom and I was in the middle of a song and I'm a dude that's playing an acoustic guitar. That's not everybody's cup of tea, right? Mm. Not everybody's into basketball. And they think, and so I will forgive them for making judgment quickly and leaving. Or, you know, I had a student recently, so I was just greeting people as they came in because I never start on time. I do a soft start, like I'm in there 10 minutes early. Because a lot of students come in early or advisors come in early and I chat.
Yeah.
And this is just something this is something that I learned is that I said the names of 8 people who were there before the hour because I said, hey, Clifford, thanks for coming in early. Hey, Jason, thanks for coming in early. I had a student leave who I didn't acknowledge, who left before the workshop even started because I didn't mention their name. But they also didn't have their name in their profile.
Yeah.
I got a message from the advisor saying that the student was really upset. And there's going to be moments like that where you have to learn that and acknowledge that. And reflecting back on it, then I could have said, hey, to the person in the green sweater, I can't see your name, but I'm really glad you're here too.
Yeah.
So that's just something that I'm learning that I didn't imagine that would be a sensitive spot for somebody, but it is. And then again, that's my learning how to be a better facilitator. And teacher. Definitely.
So what are some other things that you've learned through doing what you do on an online platform?
One of the things, and this is a friend of mine, Judson Lapley, who's another speaker, really pointed this out to me, and I think I picked up on it, but I hadn't put it into words, is like if you see your energy, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're a 10, I mean, nobody really considers themselves a 10. No, that's David Lee Roth, right? Is it like a 10 on the energy scale? So, but what Zoom does is it knocks you down like 3 notches. So
interesting.
If you identify as a 7 on the energy scale, Zoom will make you a 4.
Yeah.
So you have to you have to turn up your own volume.
Yeah. It's really interesting you say that because I've done a lot of live streams and that's one thing, that's some feedback that I receive is like, you know, more, you know, I don't want to give a fake smile or whatever, but like give, like you love doing this, show that you love doing this. And so, so it is interesting to think like, how do you still be your authentic self, but turn up the volume on your energy?
Turn up the volume on yourself, not literally like not the volume, but like you got to think about how do you want to be perceived by the folks in the room? Right. And we make choices all the time about how we're going to go to a party. Right. We make choices about what we're going to put on, like clothes we're going to wear, whether we're going to show up early, show up late. Like these are actually decisions we're going to make. We decide how we're going to show up. So you have and this is a really cool opportunity. You get to choose how you show up on stage. And what I say to anybody that I'm coaching or doing a training with, like, what's your body language telling me about you right now? right? Because I might be sitting with the president of a club and organization, and their computer is facing the ceiling, and I only see their forehead. And what that's telling me is that you're not actually paying attention to like what's going on here. So then inevitably, like by the end of any one of my workshops, everyone's like front and center and like engaged, because you realize that. So this is especially with student leadership, is that other students in your classes that are going to your like classes with you are copying your behavior, because you're a student leader. Like people, you're emulated by others, right? And so you must showcase the behavior that you want others to also do, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think it goes back to camp. It's like, this is what we tell counselors. Like, campers are going to act the way you act, right? If you wear a ripped shirt, campers are going to want to have a ripped shirt. Like, it's part of being human. Like, it's part of being human, and we all look up to others, right? And even if you don't see yourself as a leader or a role model, somebody looks up to you. Like,
yeah, that reminds me of a story that this is something that happened to me that really, I try to really remember this. When I was in high school, like or before high school, I skateboarded and was really into it. Like I was just, I'd read the magazines, I'd watch videos. I just was, that's all I could think about, and learning tricks. And I learned how to do a kickflip, where you flip the board and you land back on it. And I hardly remember this time where I was like over at friends skating, and there were some younger kids, and they were like, "Hey, do a kickflip," and I did it. Didn't think anything of it. Mm-hmm. And so 20 years later, a friend of mine tells me, hey, you should check out this video. This guy, anyway, who became a famous skateboarder, he has his video all about him and it's showing him skateboard. The first thing he said is, this jock guy, I played sports. I went from skateboarding to play sport. This guy, Clifford Kaufman, did a kickflip, and I couldn't believe it. It was like, this was real. It can really happen. And he started to think, I can make any of these things that I, imagine happen. He became, so anyway, my point about that is just that kind of what you're saying is that we all can really have a positive impact and not even realize that, or a negative impact. But anyway, sorry I wasn't trying to take, anyway, I just think.
Let's go back to let's go back to the time when you said that you went to a club and saw me playing drums, right?
Exactly.
You looked up to the guy that was on stage, but there was somebody else in the audience that was looking at you going like, oh my God, that's Clifford Kaufman, right? He's the drummer and the skateboarder and the athlete. And you don't, but that's the thing. We're not aware of our impact in that like, anybody who's probably listening might be a musician or involved in higher ed or in schools, or something, just by the nature of who maybe we're friends with on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And that you even if you are a super shy introvert, you're still impactful, and people still are watching the way you behave, right? And we as humans have these things called mirror neurons, and we watch each other and we react, and we instinctively kind of copy each other's behavior, because that's how we survived in our communities. But just to know that everybody who's listening to this is that what you do matters. What you do matters, and you make a decision every day whether you're going to be a positive force in the world or a negative force in the world. And I don't mean really negative. Just like, you have a choice to be a positive force. But I will also say that sometimes you need external motivation.
Yeah. Talk more about that.
Okay, so everyone calls me a motivational speaker, an inspirational speaker, a leadership speaker, an award-winning musician, a community builder. But sometimes I wake up and I just don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Not that I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like, because if you give me any opportunity to connect with people, I'm in. But like, there's a lot of work involved in this.
Yeah, you can be tired, or you maybe don't feel good.
There's a lot of work involved, and sometimes I'm not sure what the right decision is for my next move, right? And there have been times, especially in the last 6 months, where I was looking for videos to share with, like, I was trying to get ideas for something, and then I realized when I was watching, like, Matthew McConaughey on YouTube do his like 5-minute motivation thing, I was like, God, that's really inspiring to me. Or like, literally, if you just search on YouTube motivational videos, like, I'm unapologetically saying to you, like, there's a reason why they've been viewed 20,000 times. There's a reason why because they really get you psyched. Like we can't always get our own butts off the couch, right? We can't. Like some days we can. We make a decision. We're like, all right, I know I need to get this done. I know I need to do the dishes. I know I need to do laundry. I know I need to make my bed, right? Sometimes we just aren't feeling it, right? And we're not able to intrinsically motivate ourselves. We are so lucky to have a bunch of other people out there who are ready to motivate us. Right, truly. And even anyway, so I said, and I shared this with my mom, who was like, my mom and dad live in Mexico, and they have a bed and breakfast, and they have no business, and they're okay, right? But they thrive off of the interaction with their guests.
Yeah.
So without that excitement, without that affirmation of you being an awesome host, and sort of as you've created that and you built that into your identity, and it's not happening. I said to my mom, like, Mom, there's this awesome, motivational video. And I know I'm saying Matthew McConaughey again, or like, it's amazing if you watch. It's just fun to explore that.
Yeah.
And you don't need necessarily 20 videos. There might be one thing somebody says, and it just helps get you off the couch. And you're like, you know what? The next hour is going to be awesome because I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to put my laundry in the laundry machine. And I'm gonna open the curtains.
Yeah, and I'd say also sometimes giving yourself like some understanding, like, okay, I'm really tired. Maybe I just need some rest, and maybe it's okay if maybe you're in a situation where you can do that. Maybe you're not in a situation where you can. But sometimes if you are, that can be a thing too.
I think what you just said is really important, right? Is that you give yourself, you use the language forgiveness and grace. Is that you can. It's okay to feel like crap. It's okay to not know what you're doing. It's okay. Everybody that's listening, everybody has felt that way, right? And Clifford Kaufman, in the next month, you're going to feel that way. And everybody out there,
right.
Jason LeVasseur, maybe it's going to feel that way tomorrow. Maybe it's going to be next Wednesday. But we are all going to have our another speaker that I got to interview in the summer. I called them struggle moments. Mm-hmm. We all have struggle moments. Right? We have the image of the person that we want. We see like, this is how we want to have the most awesome day of a version of us that day. But we have struggle moments. Like we have things, I call them speed bumps, right? Personal speed bumps. And everybody has them. And when we can acknowledge that and share that, right? Being able to say that openly is really important.
Definitely. So how do you keep forward momentum? How do you, how do you keep forward momentum?
How do I keep forward momentum? It's kind of hard sometimes as a self-employed, self-booked, self-promoting person who's really good at procrastinating.
Right? I can relate to everything you just said.
Right? Yeah. So because I don't have a boss, I don't have a deadline, and how do I stay motivated?
Or just how do you keep things moving? The thing is, you don't necessarily, I guess I'm just, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, we can look at somebody else and be like, oh, they are doing so much,
Right. Okay.
and then they, you talk to them and they're like, well, like you said, I have days where I'm like, I don't want to do anything, whatever.
Right. Well, I think okay. So here's the thing that is to do something else. Like literally, I think getting psyched to do the things that you must do for your career, you also must do other things. Like, so I think that really helps me is that
variety.
Like I like woodworking. Mm-hmm. I've been building things for my daughters. I've built some lofts this fall, and
nice.
Yesterday I went for a 9-mile hike.
Yeah, man. Where'd you go?
It's Gizzard.
Fiery Gizzard.
Gizzard.
Yeah. I haven't been there yet, but it looks amazing.
It's awesome. So 9-mile hike with another friend, and it's being open to doing things outside of what you need to do.
Definitely.
Right? What you need to do to gain perspective and to find joy in things. Because look, I've been writing songs for a long time. I don't feel like writing songs sometimes.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like it. So go do something else. And don't force yourself to. Certain things you have to do to pay the rent. Like you got to mow the lawn if that's your job, and you get paid to mow the lawn. Just mow the lawn. get paid, and then in the evening do something else that brings you joy. And because the mowing the lawn is the thing that maybe brought you joy, because that's why you started that business. Like you love helping people, you love creating a beautiful space for others. You like knowing that you're going to go and serve your community of clients, right, by mowing their lawn, right? But there may be days when you're mowing the lawn and you're like, a rock hits the side of the house and hits you in the leg, and you're like, I hate mowing lawns,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, finish your work and then go do something else, get some perspective, and then realize how cool it is that you get to mow lawns, right? Like,
yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think, it took me a long time with, there was a while where I felt like, I was a latecomer to music in some ways, and that I just needed to just focus on this. But as I've gotten older, what I've realized is that taking breaks and doing other things, you'll come back to the things that you love. I mean, you'll find things, so like I haven't been practicing the drums as much as I should, but then, I'm really having fun learning these etudes. And so I'm like obsessed with them right now or whatever, So anyway, I think that's a really good point about, go ahead.
Make you better at what you do, right? Allowing for, like really, if you want to learn American Sign Language, learn American Sign Language, like do it. If it has nothing to do with your career, nothing to do with what you're doing, but you've said to yourself since you were like 15, you're like, I'd love to learn American Sign Language. What are you waiting for?
Yeah, and you never know how that could become something.
Yeah, put it on your schedule. I mean, and you're not gonna. Another thing, like so how to stay motivated is that you put it on your schedule, right? So that you put it on your schedule, and this has really just been proven. Like if you put it on your schedule and you treat everything that you need to do as like a doctor's appointment that you're not going to skip, right? So I will take American Sign Language or learning your etudes, and there's a much better chance of you accomplishing your goals if you know that at 3:00 tomorrow you are going to do this thing because that's what you put on your schedule. No distractions. Doesn't matter if Kung Fu Theater comes up on the AMC channel. You cannot watch Kung Fu Theater tomorrow. You've got to do your if it's your yoga, if it's your walk with your dogs, whatever it is that you think is going to bring you joy. It's interesting. Because the music brings me joy, right? Because I can blast music, right? And so like today I was kind of in a funk, and so I was like, yeah, what music is like? And at first I went with reggae, and I was listening to reggae for a little while. I was cleaning the house. I was like, it's not reggae. And I put bluegrass on. I was like, this is it. Today's bluegrass, right? Like, but I can listen to metal and be like, today's a metal day. Like, and it's awesome, right? And it's okay to also realize that what worked for you yesterday might not work for you tomorrow, right?
You may not be in the mood for bluegrass tomorrow, but
you may not be in the mood for bluegrass. I mean, yeah. And there's some artists that I bought every album of, and I wore them out, and then I was done with it. And now but then you can revisit it again. But I can name artists that like I was like, this is the greatest thing, and I listened to them in the car for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then I put them in. I was like, oh, it doesn't. Maybe I overdid it, right? Maybe I overdid it, and I just need a break from it. It's still awesome, but it no longer, it doesn't give me that feeling anymore.
Yeah, and it might give you that feeling tomorrow, another day too.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just wanted to read some comments. Greg had some comments. He said, as a speaker, I had to retool my lecture tour and also the film show in my program. Yeah. The challenge was met, and I left, and I was successful. He also said the virtual summit is a fantastic idea and brought so many of us together. Thanks, guys, for the conversation. All things I agree on.
Yeah,
thanks, Greg.
Greg's an awesome speaker. Greg is lives in Chicago and just an amazing speaker on LGBTQ and has an amazing film. And so I'm going to spell it for everybody: B-A-I-R-D, Greg Baird, and you should check him out because he also this is an example we were talking about. Greg has passions outside of teaching and speaking. Greg has spices. Greg started making spices and
cool.
and experimenting with flavors, and now has a whole nother side business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Also, got me thinking about a book that I'm reading right now that people might enjoy, you might enjoy as well. There's an author named James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits.
Yeah, I have it.
You have it. Nice. So you're familiar with him. That's awesome.
I was like, that sounds so familiar.
That's cool. Have you read it yet?
Yeah. No, but not this. It's there. So it's about the repetition of things, right?
Yeah, and about how you tie in your regular habits with what you're already doing. So you stacking, as I think is what he calls them.
Okay, no, then I haven't read it, but
okay.
I read the back of it.
Okay,
so one of my problems, it's not a problem, is that I pile all this stuff, and I'm like excited, and I've got this queue of things I want.
I'm similar. I totally relate.
I've got a queue. But then I forget that the queue is there, and then I'm like, "Oh, shiny object."
Yeah, here's a new one. Yeah, I just got a book all about the guy who recorded the Beatles, or one of the main engineers.
Wow,
and like, I want to read that, but I need to finish Atomic Habits. But
yeah. I have a collection of books I haven't read.
Likewise,
I have a collection of audiobooks I haven't listened to.
Yeah. Anybody else who's listening?
Yeah.
If you any books you haven't read. Well, anyway, Jason, thank you so much for talking. It's good. We were getting together semi-regularly when we were doing that sort of thing, and I always enjoyed that. So it's nice to at least connect here. And I've been, I think you've been doing some really great things. And I love to see how you just keep doing what you're doing, and nothing's stopping you from doing what you're doing. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Every Friday I do this. Also, so Jason, please tell about some of the different things. Because you started a podcast.
I got a podcast.
Tell about the things you're up to and where people can check them out.
All right. Well, in the summer, I started interviewing people because the virtual event ideas community on Facebook was gaining popularity. And I realized I had learned a bunch of stuff. I'd learned a bunch of stuff from other people. And then I wanted to share what I was learning from other people with other people, right? And so instead of it coming from me, I started recording these interviews. And then in like 3 weeks, I did 48 interviews. And now they have started to be released as the podcast, it's called The Inspired Interviews. Mm-hmm. And originally it was very specifically about virtual engagement, right? It was very specifically about how to use these platforms, but then the conversations got more about like where we went is a more personal level, and like, hey, what's working for you? How are you dealing with your emotions? And what are some good tips and tricks for eating healthy? And so the conversation just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then so originally they were called it was called the Virtual Engagement Summit. Now I changed the name to the Inspired Interviews because every single person has something that is, everyone's taught me something, and which is super cool. And I don't want to take their message and call it mine, right? I want to say like, this is what I learned from this person, and here it is. So the Inspired Interview is really fun, and a really fun one I did for Thanksgiving was an Iowa State Fair concessions vendor, and we talk about turkey sales, turkey leg sales at the Iowa State Fair, and his record-breaking day at the Oklahoma State Fair on MC Hammer Night. So you got to listen to the podcast to find out about that.
Okay.
That interview was with Dustin Beener. The interview with Dustin Beener about turkey legs.
I'm going to write this down. Check out Inspired.
The Inspired Interviews. Yeah.
The Inspired.
Yeah. And I would just say to anybody listening is that you it really is an attitude thing about embracing this platform. And the more times you say that I'm zoomed out or I'm tired of Zoom, the more tired you're going to get. So much of your language has an impact on the way you feel.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. And look for those things that inspire you too. I mean, there's so much online right now as a necessity. Yes. And we could have a whole nother conversation about once things are more like what we call normal and hybrid sort of things, which we will have to have another conversation sometime. But thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks for letting me be a part of this. Clif Chats.
Clif Chats. Yeah, it has a name.
And it's such a great